army is coming. I'm the next criminal mastermind.
Now look around, this is what they call greatness.
Hey everyone, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, with a video review of the new Disney Plus film Artemis Fowl, directed by Sir Kenneth Branagh. This was a film that was going to be coming to theaters. Because theaters are still currently closed, Disney is putting it on Disney Plus, their streaming service, and you can start watching it as of Friday, June 12th. Now, I'm not going to really give away major plot points, but if you don't want to know anything about the film before you stream it on Disney Plus, back out of this video right now.
Good to know.
I want to start by saying that I didn't read the books that Artemis Fowl is based on, so it's very possible that if you love the novels, you're dying to see these characters on screen, you may connect to the material a little bit more than I did.
Maybe. Just maybe.
But right off the bat, nothing about Artemis Fowl felt very original. It felt like mixes of Spy Kids and the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them films that we've seen so far with wondrous creatures. It had a little bit of 007 mixed in and almost any sort of fantasy family film that we've seen over the years. And that's probably what, is delivered in the books, so it could be a very faithful adaptation. But as I watched it, nothing really stood out and felt very original as we dove into the story of Artemis Fowl. So he is a 12-year-old boy genius whose father collects antiquities, and all of the things that he collects come from realms that most people don't necessarily believe in. And so because of that, there's a lot of conspiracies about whether Artemis Fowl Sr. is legit or lying, or if he's a criminal mastermind, and all of this stuff is sort of mixed in early on in the plot, and it gets confusing right off the very beginning. But Artemis Fowl's father gets kidnapped, and then Artemis has to sort of run through all of these different fantasy adventure realms to find out what happened to his father. And as you sort of go through these worlds and see him interact with these creatures, you're like, oh yeah, that looks like the thing from that other movie that I saw. Again, it's probably a really faithful adaptation of what's in the Artemis Fowl books, but as I watched it visually, it just felt like I'd seen all of this stuff done before. Let's touch on the cast really quickly, because I do want to say that the two young leads that Kenneth Branagh cast in Artemis Fowl are really good, and they play with the material well, and I think that if they get the ability to continue to build on these characters, will shine in the roles, because I really liked what they were doing with them. Specifically, Ferdia Shaw is a relative newcomer from Ireland who's cast as Artemis Fowl, and it's a difficult role because he has to carry this hyper intelligence and this ultra confidence that you wouldn't expect a normal 12-year-old to have, but he's incredibly smart. He's 2 steps ahead of the villains at almost every turn, and he is, figuring out ways to not only save his father, but to save the world from an invasion of fairies, essentially. That extends over to Lara McDonnell as well, too, who I understand is a stage veteran at such a young age. She was in the Matilda show that was on stage and was very popular in it.
Now you can trust me.
Fair enough.
And she is very good as Holly Short. Now, the Holly Short character figures out how to worm her way into the investigation into the disappearance of Artemis's father, and that puts her, of course, on the path of Artemis. I liked both of them in their roles, but the problem is Kenneth Branagh casts a bunch of Hollywood veterans, seasoned veterans who, when you see them, you're like, oh, this could be fun, but then they get completely wasted. And that starts with Colin Farrell. And Colin Farrell is cast as Artemis Fowl Sr. We see him very briefly in the beginning of the film. He interacts with his son for a little bit, sets up a bit of the mystery, and then gets kidnapped and is off screen for basically the rest of the movie. And we go, we know that we're searching for him over the course of the film, but it gives him nothing to do.
I know.
It introduces him and then removes him from the equation.
Look, my work is coming to an end.
Josh Gad similarly plays what I understand to be a popular character from the books. His name is Mulch Diggums.
Mulch Diggums, just a talented giant dwarf.
He's a dwarf who, I kid you not, burrows through dirt by eating it and swallowing it and then excreting it. So tune in for that.
I'm an artist.
But the way that Kenneth Branagh uses him is a little bit strange, because he's mostly a narrator telling the story of Artemis Fowl from a jail cell.
Oh no.
So he's not part of the story per se. He does show up later in the movie, but again, for long periods of time, he's just not part of the narrative. But we'll cut back to him as he's narrating the story to these prison guards who we don't get to see. So it gives Josh Gad the ability to do these long monologues from a jail cell. That's not very interesting.
We'll see.
And that leaves Dame Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench is in Artemis Fowl, and that's strange in and of itself because she is above stuff like this. And I don't understand, like maybe she has grandkids who really loved the books and wanted to appear in it. And it would be one thing if Judi Dench, who is playing the head of the, again, elfin police department, she's the head of the elfin police department, and she has like an elfin costume and has to yell at Lara McDonnell for things that are going wrong over the course of the investigation. And sometimes actors, really pedigreed actors, will take roles like this and seem to sink their teeth into them and really have a lot of fun. Go over the top, be very campy. I'll bring up the Harry Potter franchise as an example that just had, across the board, amazing British character actors in fantastic roles and made Hogwarts into, a real place. Judi Dench does not seem to be having fun in this movie. Like, not in the least bit. Like, she actually looks really upset that she's in it. And maybe it was a conscious choice to play this character as mad all the time, but instead she just looks like she's mad that she's in Artemis Fowl. And I found that to be really strange. So it's cool that you have Judi Dench in your movie and you can put her name on your poster, but when she is a detriment to the story that you're trying to tell, then I'm not quite sure it was worth it.
Did Judi Dench go from Cats to this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she did. I mean, she might have done Artemis Fowl much earlier, but Cats is another great example of just like, fire your agent.
Never.
She's 85 years old. You don't have to be working at 85, especially if you're Judi Dench. Judi, honey. Ultimately, for me, it boils down to the fact that Sir Kenneth Branagh, who is an outstanding filmmaker, is just the wrong fit for this material. Branagh, over the years, has obviously done Shakespeare adaptations, and he brought Thor to the Marvel Cinematic Universe by leaning on some of the Shakespeare inspirations that are found in the Marvel comics. Recently, he did Murder on the Orient Express, where he not only played famed detective Hercule Poirot, but he brought that Agatha Christie classic to life by, bringing the Orient Express train to life and casting it with amazing people like Josh Gad, who, of course, I think is doing Sir Kenneth Branagh a favor here.
Really?
So that's the type of stuff that I want to see him doing, and I don't necessarily figure out why he gravitated to this material. And ultimately, he just didn't figure out how to make Artemis Fowl soar off of the page and land on the screen. It's really heavy on mythology. We are still meeting new characters in this story 45 minutes into the movie, and it's only a 95-minute film. So as we're still trying to figure out like who's who and what's what and what land are we in, it got really confusing. You're going to need a bit of a scorecard to sort of figure out what's going on and, an instruction manual to kind of figure out why you would care. So because of that, it's not really made for younger audiences, but I also think it's a little bit too slapsticky and silly for sophisticated teens, so I don't quite get who the audience for Artemis Fowl ends up being, and I don't think Branagh figured it out either. I am going to give the film 2 stars out of 5. I do think that the young leads try their best with the material that they're given. And listen, Branagh, it's not that he makes a bad film necessarily. He just kind of made a film that doesn't gel in the way that I think he ultimately wanted to. Kenneth Branagh will be back in theaters later this year with the follow-up to Murder on the Orient Express, and it's going to be called Death on the Nile, another Agatha Christie classic. So I am holding out for a return to form for Sir Kenneth Branagh with material that I think better fits his skill set.
I am equally disappointed in you. This is nice.
Now, the good news is that the movie is free for you if you already have Disney Plus, right? You're a subscriber. It's going to land on your streaming service starting on June 12th. And so if you are inclined, give it a shot. You may end up dialing into it more than I did. If you are a family that's been home for a while and you're just starving for new content, it's very possible you're going to want to throw it on and see what happens. Or probably, if you read these books while you were growing up or you're currently reading them now, you just want to see how it translates to the screen. Personally, I cannot recommend it. I don't think that even free on the Disney Plus streaming service, it's going to hold your attention for the full 95 minutes, and you'll probably end up punching out. But I would love to know if you gave it a shot and got further along in it or really connected with the material more than I did. Head to the comment section down below if you do decide to watch Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus and let me know your own personal review of it. I really do want to know if it works better for you guys than it did for me. While you are down in the comment section telling me just how wrong I am or how much you agreed with my review of Artemis Fowl, do me a favor and hit subscribe and then turn on those notifications again, because every time that we post a video like this here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page, we want you to come and watch it.